Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are objectively unpacking a really fascinating breakdown from former CIA operations officer Rick Dater. He recently shared his analysis on Fox News regarding the highly complex diplomatic dynamic following that high-stakes Trump-Xi summit. I mean, we're talking about a massive three-way international chess match here between the United States, China, and Iran. It's an absolute clash over energy dominance, military leverage, and global trade, and understanding how these three nations are maneuvering around each other is absolutely critical to grasping the current state of global affairs.
To really wrap our heads around this three-way international chess match, we've got a clear roadmap for us today. First, we'll look at the Trump-Xi summit itself. Then we'll examine China's relationship with Iran, followed by the strategy of leverage and global oil dynamics. Finally, we'll wrap up with the future actions we all need to be watching.
Section 1. The Trump-Xi Summit. Let's see what actually went down. Now, what's really interesting here is the very specific assertion President Trump made right after the summit. Speaking to Sean Hannity, he basically stated that President Xi agreed he will not provide military equipment to Iran. That is a big statement. According to Venturiter's analysis, getting a verbal commitment like this from Beijing to withhold support from Tehran is a major diplomatic pivot. I mean, securing a pledge from one of the world's major superpowers to step back from militarily backing a highly volatile regime, that sends ripples across the entire international community. So according to the administration, the two leaders largely found common ground on three critical fronts. Iran absolutely cannot get a nuclear weapon, the Strait of Hormuz, which is a vital shipping lane, must be reopened, and President Xi even offered to help end the ongoing conflict. But, there's a tense reality simmering underneath this stated agreement. U.S. officials continuously point out that China essentially acts as Iran's ultimate enabler. Behind the scenes of these diplomatic handshakes, Beijing has been propping up Tehran's military and economic strength through massive oil purchases, dual-use exports, and highly complex intermediary networks.
Section 2. China's relationship with Iran. So why exactly does China support Iran in the first place? Relying strictly on Dieter's strategic analysis, let's look at the why. And this brilliantly illustrates the dynamic. Dieter describes China's historical role with Iran as acting as its silent banker and diplomatic bodyguard. Think about it. When harsh Western sanctions begin to bite, China steps in. They buy Iranian oil, providing the vital economic oxygen the regime desperately needs to survive, and they offer the diplomatic cover necessary to keep the leadership afloat. The U.S. administration's message right now is definitive. If China wants a seat at the table and expects to be treated as a responsible global superpower, this silent banking to state sponsors of terrorism has got to stop. Just look at the sharp divergence in strategic goals here. The United States wants to force China to make a definitive choice, turn its back on terrorism suppliers, and align with global stability. But Data points out China's historical playbook is very different. It actually heavily benefits Beijing when the U.S. is continuously bogged down in Middle Eastern conflicts. Why? Well, because a distracted America, spending its time, money, and military focus in the Middle East, creates a huge geopolitical vacuum. And that vacuum allows China to quietly grow and expand its influence into Asia and, surprisingly, right into the Western Hemisphere in Latin America. Section 3. The strategy of leverage. Because, as Dater emphasizes, international relations are built on calculated self-interest and leverage, not friendship. Historically, Iran relies on international division and panic. They threaten shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz, artificially spike global oil prices, and simply wait for the rest of the world to flinch and give in to their demands. But the United States is trying to flip the script entirely. Beijing desperately needs the Strait of Hormuz open to keep oil moving for its own massive economy. By stepping back, the U.S. is making Iran's disruptive behavior a direct, unavoidable threat to Chinese economic self-interest. It's a highly calculated move to force Beijing to police its own partner.
Section 4. Global oil dynamics. This is where energy dominance plays a critical role in resolving the tensions within this geopolitical triangle.
So the crucial point is this one striking number, $20. Energy is the ultimate trump card here. Decatur points out that following the removal of Maduro in January, the United States effectively became the world's top oil supplier overnight. Because the U.S. controls these vital global levers of oil, they possess the theoretical power to plunge prices all the way down to $20 a barrel. For the everyday global citizen, a shift like that means massive changes in inflation and local energy costs. But politically, it completely rewrites the power dynamic in any negotiating room with leaders like Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin.
And the economic squeeze on Beijing is tightening significantly. Data calculates that recent U.S. actions and the ongoing conflict in Iran have already choked off a full 20% of the oil supply that China relies on to keep its economy running. Keep in mind, China is already fighting some severe internal headwinds. They have a contracting economy and plummeting birth rates that aren't even keeping pace with the population of Beijing. Depriving them of the raw fuel they need to grow and manage those domestic crises, that is an incredible piece of economic leverage brought to the negotiating table by the U.S.
Section 5, Future Actions to Watch. So, what specific intelligence indicators will prove if China is actually changing its behavior?
Words spoken at a summit are great, sure, but intelligence officials focus strictly on the data. Dieter says they are currently watching the China-Iran relationship like a hawk. Specifically, they're looking to see if China will turn off the satellite imagery they currently provide to the Iranian regime. Will they cut crucial communication support? Furthermore, will Chinese ministries openly and publicly criticize Iranian actions and demand the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz? If those specific tops get turned off, that is the ultimate intelligence signal that China's actions are actually matching President Xi's promises.
Let's see how this builds over time, because the speed of these global geopolitical shifts is just remarkable. We went from a major shift in global oil dominance in January with the removal of Maduro, straight into the immediate fallout of the Trump-Xi summit today. And all this incredible diplomatic momentum is hurtling toward a hard deadline, the next major summit already scheduled for September 24th in Washington, D.C.
I'll leave you with this to ponder. As economic leverage drastically shifts and the pressure mounts on a contracting Chinese economy, who makes the next definitive strategic move before leaders meet again on September 24th? Will Iran stand down? Will China sever its historical ties as the silent banker? Or will we see a completely unexpected countermove on the global board? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on those intelligence watch lists.